I'm going to be honest with you. This right here feels like one of those moments where the Chiefs are not just making a pick, they're deciding how they want to rebuild this entire roster moving forward. I'm Victor, and if you've been following everything like I have, you already know the situation. The Chiefs are sitting in a rare spot with that number 9 pick, and there are two completely different paths on the table right now because on one side, there's a strong expectation from multiple mock drafts that Kansas City could target impact players on defense or even offensive line with names like Ruben Bain Jr., Mansour Delane, or even a tackle to protect Mahomes being heavily projected. But at the exact same time, there's also a growing belief that the team could trade down, stack more picks, and completely change their strategy. And that's what makes this moment so important, because this isn't just about who they pick. It's about whether they stay aggressive at number 9 or step back to build more depth across the roster. So, the real question is, are the Chiefs about to make a safe, calculated move or something that could reshape this entire draft for them? Stay with me because when you break this down, it reveals exactly what this front office is thinking right now. And hey, if you ride with the Chiefs like I do, help me reach 2,100 subscribers. We're building something real here, one true fan at a time. Alright, so when you really dive into this situation, what stands out immediately is that the Chiefs are in a position they're simply not used to, holding a top 10 pick after a disappointing season. And that alone already creates a completely different kind of pressure on this front office because this isn't just another late-round luxury pick. This is a chance to land a true impact player who can change the trajectory of the team right away. And when you look at powerhouses, the projections and mock drafts are showing there's a very clear pattern emerging because depending on how the board falls, the Chiefs could realistically go in multiple directions. Whether it's reinforcing the defensive front with a disruptive edge rusher like Ruben Bain Jr., adding a physical corner to stabilize the secondary, or even shifting focus to the offensive side with a playmaker at wide receiver or help on the offensive line. What makes this even more interesting is that there isn't one obvious answer, and that's exactly where the tension comes in. Because while the defense clearly needs reinforcements, especially after losing key pieces and struggling to maintain consistency, the offense also showed signs that it needs more reliability and explosiveness, particularly in critical moments where execution broke down. And that's why this number 9 pick feels so important because it represents an opportunity to address one of those major weaknesses with a premium talent, something the Chiefs haven't really had the chance to do during their recent run of success where they were constantly picking at the bottom of the draft. At the same time, you can't ignore the reality that whichever direction they choose, there will be a trade-off because focusing on one side of the ball means trusting that the other areas can hold up or be addressed later. And that's not always a comfortable position to be in, especially for a team trying to bounce back quickly. And as a fan, that's where the mixed emotions really start to build because there's excitement in knowing this team can add a high-level talent, but there's also that concern about whether they're going to make the right call, especially with so many needs still on the roster. But here's where things start to take an even more strategic turn. Because while all this focus is on what the Chiefs might do at number 9, there's a growing belief that they might not even stay there. And if that happens, it could completely change not just who they draft, but how this entire draft unfolds for them moving forward. Now, this is where things get really interesting because while everyone is debating what the Chiefs should do with that number 9 pick, there's a very real possibility that they don't even stay there. And according to projections, the front office could actually move back in the first round to stack more draft capital, which honestly tells you a lot about how they're viewing this roster right now. Because if you think about it, trading down from number 9 to somewhere like number 16, as suggested in that mock scenario, isn't just about giving up a higher pick. It's about trusting that the value across multiple selections could outweigh the impact of a single elite prospect. And in this case, the focus would shift toward reinforcing the offensive line by bringing in a high-upside tackle like Monroe Freeling, pairing him with a young piece like Josh Simmons to build long-term protection around the quarterback. And from a fan perspective, I'll be honest, this is one of those moves that makes sense logically, but emotionally it's a little harder to swallow because when you finally get a top 10 pick after years of success, you naturally want that star, that explosive player who changes games right away, especially at positions like wide receiver where the offense clearly needs more firepower. something that multiple projections have pointed out when linking names like Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate to Kansas City. But at the same time, if the board really falls the way those projections suggest, with top defensive prospects already gone and limited value at key positions, then trading back starts to look like a smart, calculated move, especially if it allows the team to add another second-round pick and walk away with multiple players who can contribute early instead of putting all the pressure on one single selection. And that's where the bigger picture starts to come into focus, because this isn't just about one pick or one player. This is about how the Chiefs are trying to rebuild depth across the roster after a season that exposed a lot of weaknesses, and whether they choose to chase star power or build a more complete and balanced team moving forward. Now, connecting this with what we talked about before, you can clearly see the pattern here, because on one side you have a team that could stay aggressive and go after a high-impact weapon to immediately elevate the offense. And on the other side, you have a front office that might prefer to play the long game, accumulate assets, and fix multiple holes at once, which shows that right now this is a franchise at a crossroads trying to figure out the fastest and most sustainable way to get back to the top. And honestly, as a fan, this feels like one of those decisive moments where every move matters because the margin for error is smaller than it used to be. And whether they hit big on a single player or spread their bets across the draft, the expectation is still the same, which is getting back into contention as soon as possible. So, if you ask me, this isn't just a positive or negative situation, it's a critical one, because the strategy they choose in this draft is going to define not just next season, but potentially the next phase of this team's identity. And that's exactly why every single decision from here on out feels so important for the future of the Chiefs. And when you take everything into account, this situation tells you something very clear about where the Chiefs are right now, because this is no longer a team operating from pure dominance and luxury. This is a team that is being forced to make calculated strategic decisions to rebuild depth, fix weaknesses, and redefine how they're going to compete at the highest level again. And whether that means trading down, accumulating picks, or targeting specific positions like the offensive line, every move now feels like part of a bigger reset rather than just a simple upgrade. At the same time, there is still a strong sense of opportunity here, because having multiple early picks and the flexibility to move around the board gives this front office real power to reshape the roster quickly. And if they execute this the right way, if they hit on those selections and bring in players who can contribute immediately, this could actually accelerate the return to contention faster than people expect. Which is why, even with all the uncertainty, there is still reason for optimism. But let's be real for a second, because as fans, we've seen how quickly things can go wrong when decisions don't hit. And that's why this moment also comes with a level of pressure that we're not used to seeing with this team, because missing on these opportunities, whether it's by trading down at the wrong time or passing on the wrong player, could set the team back even further in a conference that is only getting stronger. So for me, this is one of those moments where you feel both things at the same time. You feel hope because the tools are there to fix this roster, but you also feel that urgency, that sense that they have to get this right, because the window doesn't stay open forever, and the margin between being a contender and being just another team in the AFC is smaller than ever. Now, I want to hear from you, because this is the kind of decision that really divides the fan base. Would you trade down and try to build more depth, or would you stay aggressive and go after that one game-changing player right at the top? Drop your opinion in the comments, because I'm really curious to see where you stand on this. And if you've been enjoying this kind of content, talking Chiefs football, like real fans who actually live every moment of this team, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because we're getting closer to 200 subscribers, and your support really makes a difference in helping this community. How